Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of Sip and Read. I am your host, Martinique Brown, and I'm so excited that you have decided to watch the show today. We had such a good show today. You know why? Because we are actually talking about chapter 7. So, this is a good chapter because a couple of my friends that has been listening to the book club has asked, how in the world do you get to know somebody if you are limiting how much time you spend with someone? Because that's actually what Dr. Raunikar is teaching in this book, Choosing God's Best, because he's trying to move us from the mindset of dating to courting. So specifically in this chapter, we're talking about relating with someone without actually dating them. So before we get started, make sure you go ahead and share this video now. Let me know that you're in the house. Let me know that you are here watching the show. Also, make sure that if we're not friends yet on Facebook, make sure that you send me a friend request so you can always be notified of the different shows that I host and that I post as well. Also, subscribe to my YouTube channel, which is Martinique the Storyteller. All of my links are actually in the description box. If you really like the shows that I produce, make sure you go ahead and just give me a financial gift. Any amount helps because it does take money to produce these shows. Also, again, I'm just really happy that you're here. Hey, Taekwon, I'm really happy that you are here for the show today. I also want to just introduce our next book. It is actually called Girl Boss. And so it's by Sophia Amoruso. And we're actually going to read this book probably within the next 4 weeks. So the link is in the description box. So make sure you go ahead and order your book so that you will be prepared when we do our book club. But today's episode is actually just going to be part 1 because this chapter is so full of good information. I didn't want to try to rush today's episode, so I decided to make it into 2 parts. So the way that we really make this show a lot more interactive is when you let me know that you're here, when you post comments, and when you have questions as well. That's how we can make the show a lot more interesting. If you are an author and you're watching the show, you know you can actually have your book featured on the show. If you're interested in that, make sure that you go ahead and send me a message on Facebook, or you can also just send me a message on YouTube if that's where you're watching it from. So let's go ahead and get started on this. So it's relating without dating. So this is actually principle number 4. It says be set apart, which means sanctified in your friendships by committing yourself to biblically appropriate behavior that won't compromise your integrity and defraud another person. So actually, Dr. Raunikar shares that the most common question he gets about courtship is, if you don't date, how will you ever get to know anyone? And I know that's my question. You know, if I'm not spending this daily time with somebody, how in the world will I get to know them? So, like I said, that's a question for me. If you've been watching this show, do you feel like that's been your question? Also, if you need to catch up on any of the episodes, you can catch up on the episodes on my YouTube channel. And remember, the link is in the description box. So Dr. Raunikar actually says that a dating perspective keeps you focused on how to meet and get to know other available singles, but from a courtship perspective. So let me just read some of what he says in here. So he says, from a courtship perspective, however, God does the seeking and searching. He brings the right person into your life and has the responsibility of revealing that choice to you. If you have a willing heart, he will supply the wisdom you need to discern his choice when the time is right. And he's actually coming from Isaiah 55, verse 9. To me, that verse really didn't align with what he just said. It was a good point that he made, but when I read that at verse, I'm like, well, Dr. Raunikar, that doesn't really go with it. But anywho, so one thing that Dr. Raunikar wrote that I, pretty much disagreed with was him saying that dating focuses on the intensity in the beginning of the relationship, whereas courtship uses time for the development of a relationship. What do you think about that statement? Do you feel that off the jump when you're dating somebody, it focuses on the intensity? That hasn't really been my case when I've been dating somebody. I do believe that, when I'm going into it, when I've met that person, after talking to them a little bit, I am able to find out, okay, if this is somebody that I want to continue to get to know, or do I feel like this person is really just a waste of my time? But it's not intense in the beginning. So, but maybe that's somebody's story for them, but that's just not my story. He says, and with that, I really don't know the type of relationships that Dr. Raunikar has been in, but like I said, we really just took our time in our relationships that I had with different guys. But Dr. Raunikar shares that the issue is not that you can't spend time together, but how can you be together in ways that will avoid counterfeit oneness? And remember, we talked about that counterfeit oneness. It was either in chapter 5 or chapter 6. Like I said, you can always just catch up on the episodes on YouTube. But with that, how do we begin to spend this time with somebody without giving ourselves physically or giving ourselves emotionally to somebody that has not even committed themselves to us yet? And so that's where he's talking about that counterfeit oneness. Dr. Raunikar says that the aim is not to curse dating, but to avoid the shortcomings of dating. And so I'm just like, Dr. Raunikar, you going to wait to tell us that until chapter 7? Because throughout the book, you would think that Dr. Raunikar is like, oh, dating is a no-no, dating is a no-no, but I feel like with anything, especially because we are all different individuals and different personalities, you have to pull the good and do away with the bad things of anything. So I feel like dating does have some good takeaways from it. But like Dr. Raunikar is really just trying to say, he really just wants us to avoid the shortcomings that dating typically has. So he says that we do this by avoiding activities that encourages intimacy without commitment or accountability. So Dr. Raunikar also points out that many times within the first 3 months of dating, people are still showing their representative and not showing their true selves. What do y'all think about that? Do you feel that within that first 3 months, or in the beginning, somebody is not showing their true colors? I don't know. I feel like the guys that I've been meeting, I'm really nobody has truly just shocked me like, oh my gosh, I can't believe he's like that. I feel like I've been able to get a true and a honest sense of somebody in the beginning, from where, they're coming from. So let's see. So he also says that once these couples get married, their spouse will say, this is not the person that I've dated. Now, I'm not married. So anybody that's watching this show that's married, you tell me, is that how it is? You marry somebody and then you like, you didn't show me this side of you when we were dating. I always believe that God is going to reveal, you are so silly. You are so silly. Okay, so I'm gonna put this up here so you don't think that I'm just laughing at myself. So my friend Regina says, how long does it take to pass gas in front of a person? Until then, representative. I have always just been that person, like, you do it too. So I'm gonna just be like, you might not want to come near me because I stink right now. But Regina, I know you in a relationship. How long did it take you to pass gas in front of your boo? And Taekwon, what about you? So, let me know, people that's married out there. Do you feel like you are introduced to the true person once you get married? Are you shocked? When you like, what in the world? You didn't show me this side of yourself. So Dr. Raunikar also says that courtship stresses time spent with each other's family and in ministry and group activities. That's good, Dr. Raunikar. So I have a confession to y'all. So I do online dating. And so I met this guy online, and he lives about 2 hours away from me. And so this is the first guy that I've probably more than 6 months. That's what Regina says. So this guy lives like 2 hours away, and this is the first person that I've possibly talked to since reading this book. And I was just wondering, like, how would we, if I'm trying to implement these principles that Dr. Raunikar is teaching, like, how in the world would I do something like that? Would it be okay? I'm a member of a local church here in Orlando. Would he come to my church and do ministry at my church? And so just figuring out the logistics of it all. But realistically, what do y'all think? Like, how would that work out? So Dr. Raunikar teaches that a solid friendship will be the springboard for beginning a healthy courtship. And I truly do. I do believe that. But my problem it has been so difficult for me to be friends with guys that I'm attracted to. I'm like, where's the line? It's so hard for me to separate the two, because I'm looking like, he is so cute and don't be nice. I'm like, we can't be friends. That's just how it is. But how do we build these friendships? How are friendships typically built? So there's 2 ways that Dr. Raunikar shares that friendships are typically built. One, you have a mutual interest, something that you're both interested in. And the second thing is trust and understanding among each other. And that, to me, I feel like I'm the type of person where I trust you until you do something to me to make me see that you are untrustworthy or you are somebody that I can't depend on. And that's why I really look at the small things to see if you can handle the big things. So now, if you tell me that you're going to call me at 7 p.m. And you don't call me at that time, and you don't send me a text message and say, hey, I'm running a little late. Is it cool if we talk at 7:30? If you don't do nothing, to me, that's being inconsiderate, because I'm anticipating your phone call, so it's things like that I look at to determine if you are somebody that I can trust. You are somebody that I can depend on. And so Taekwon shared that he actually reads people pretty well, and he's very inquisitive. That's good. It's good that you're very inquisitive, Taekwon. So with that, Dr. Raunikar also says that building a friendship in the context of a group will free you from many pressures that develop in one-on-one dating situation. So some of the pressures that he actually listed were keeping the conversation going by yourself. Now, I don't have a problem with that. I can pretty much talk to a fly on the wall. Be like, hey, fly, how you doing? The second pressure, he said, is hitting it off in the beginning. The third pressure, he says, is having different interests than you. So what do you feel like are the different pressures of those one-on-one dating situations that we typically put ourselves in? So personally, I think that this is something that I haven't really been focusing on the last, online possibility that I had. So I really feel like once we talk and get to know each other, we will find out if we have mutual interests. But I just feel like with the mutual interest thing, I think that's great. But what if you just genuinely enjoy hanging out with that person? And so if you enjoy hanging out with that person, could you see yourself doing things with that person that you're not so much interested in? Do you feel like that is something that you can continue in a relationship? Because I do know that there are times when you are in a relationship where you will have to do things that you're not interested in, but it's about spending that time with that individual. Have you found yourself in those type of situations before? So one of the statements that I didn't agree with what Dr. Raunikar actually said was, until you know and trust each other thoroughly as close friends, you should avoid one-on-one time alone situations. Come on, Dr. Raunikar, are you serious? Let's be realistic here. I mean, I don't have to trust you 100% like that in order to go out to eat and have a one-on-one lunch with you or something. But what y'all think about that? So then Dr. Raunikar begins to talk about the deception that goes on in dating. Now, I thought that this was pretty good because I'm telling you, we will deceive the heck out of some people to make them think that we're interested in them. And the reason why we don't come out and say we're not interested is, one, because we don't want to hurt their feelings. And another reason why is because we're waiting for that next better person to come along. And the reason why I say that last statement is because I know that that's what I was doing when I was in college. I would have my guy on the side, but I knew I didn't want to commit to him because I was waiting for that next best person. So I thought to come along, but I still wanted that companionship. So Dr. Raunikar shares that ladies are deceptive sometimes when a guy asks us out again and we say we are busy. And he's saying that's what ladies do. So a guy will ask a female out, and she'll be like, oh, I'm busy, Girl, you need to tell him that you are not interested in him so he can quit asking you out. And Dr. Raunikar shares that men say deceptive things when they say, I'll call you later, knowing that they won't. Now that has been, oh my gosh, that is such a pet peeve. If you know you're not going to call me, why are you lying? Do not say you're going to call. And I think that that's one of the things that we have to look at as Christians. We have to say to ourselves, okay, are we leading this person on? Are we telling these people things to get their hopes up? And that is so deceptive. And we can't do that to people. We have to be considerate of people's feelings. And I'm telling you, that's what really changed me. That's why I stopped doing what I was doing in college, because the same thing that I was doing to these guys turned around and happened to me. And I'm like, Martinique, you don't need to be treating people like this. So I want you guys to be upfront and honest, and I won't post it. If you put on there, do not post, I won't bring your name up. But how have you in the past or currently been deceiving someone that is really interested in you, and you know that you're not interested in them? How have you been deceptive to them? So Dr. Raunikar says that we are responsible for the other person's perception of the relationship. I thought that was a good statement that he made, because we can continue to say, oh, well, I can't help he feels like that about me. No, but are you leading him on? If you leading him on, you can help the way he feel about you. Because if you telling this guy, oh no, I'm not interested, but when he asks you to take you out, you tell him yes, then he's hopeful. He's like, I'm gonna wear this girl down. She is gonna be with me. No, you need to cut it off. You need to stop talking to him and everything, because he thinks that y'all are gonna be in a relationship, and you know what you're doing. And I feel like we got to stop. We got to stop leading these people on. We got to stop having sex with these people, knowing that we don't like them like that. It's just, we're really just hurting ourselves, and we're hurting people as well. Hey, Dairo. So Dairo, y'all, is all the way from the Gambia. We are international. Can y'all believe that? So I can, I think one of the things that I used to tell myself was that made me feel better when I was deceiving guys was I would tell them, well, I'm talking to multiple guys, and I just expected them to be okay with it, but guys had that mentality that I don't care if you're talking to other guys, I'm gonna get you, girl. So I just feel like, what I was doing back then was just hurtful. That's the bottom line, and I shouldn't have been doing it. So with phase number 4 of the courtship process is 4 different friendship levels, and Dr. Raunikar actually goes through those, and he says that there's acquaintance, there's a casual friendship, there's a close friendship, and then there's an intimate friendship. And Dr. Raunikar actually breaks these 4 levels down, and the spiritual aspect of it. So he actually puts on there the emotional and physical commitments that are a part of each other. So let me see. So for the acquaintance, it says we actually focus on being totally content and feeling complete as single engaged to Christ. Develop a life vision and direction about serving God through ministry opportunities. Avoid spiritual involvement with another individual at this point, except for witnessing the gospel of Jesus. So that's in the acquaintance section under spiritual. So when we become, emotional commitment, I'll read that. So remember, this is still under acquaintance. No emotional intimacy, casual interaction, limited shared feelings, no one-on-one activities. Dr. Raunikar is not playing. He like, no, don't be doing all that. So for casual friendship, remember, we still at level 4 under the friendship level. Our spiritual commitment is may be involved in a church activity with another individual. Discuss Christ in his kingdom, his meaning Jesus Christ, in group setting or Bible studies, but avoid deep spiritual 101 talk. So for the emotional commitment under casual friendship, it says no emotional intimacy, but share surface feelings. What is surface feelings? Huh? Y'all tell me, what is a surface feeling? Because I don't know how to share no surface feelings. Share close friends and or activities. No one-on-one activities under casual friendship. So now we're gradually moving to close friendship under spiritual commitment. He says, share with each other God's vision for your lives. I'll be discussing that stuff on like the second conversation. I'm so like out of whack with what Dr. Raunikar is trying to teach. Close friendship. Share with each other God's vision for your lives. Discover each other's spiritual gifts, maturity level, and desire to serve God. Experience deeper spiritual talk, but limited, intimate one-on-one talk. Under the emotional commitment, he says, share deeper feelings, but limit emotional involvement. How do you do that? And see, that's what the one thing that I don't like about this book. He's saying like to do it, but realistically, how do you do that? How do you share your emotions with somebody and not becoming in a deeper relationship with them? Because you're sharing a part of yourself. I don't understand, how do you separate the two? He says, focus on external social activities instead of one-on-one intimate interaction. Oh, now he gets to physical commitment. When you close friends, he said you can do a side hug, no full body slam. Now, for people that be going to church, they call that the church hug. When you be like that. So the last one is intimate friendship. So this is our spiritual commitment under intimate friendship. He says, begin intimate spiritual talk related at the deepest level. Discuss possibility of marriage and the purpose and process of courtship as it relates to your love for God. Discuss need for spiritual covering and accountability. Emotional commitment. Share each other's innermost thoughts, fears, failures, and hopes. I was kind of shocked that Dr. Raunikar said we can start sharing that stuff. It says support each other in times of crisis and pain, share times of joy, limit one-on-one emotional interaction. Now, with the physical commitment under intimate friendship, he said we can do side hugs and we can hold hands. Another thing that Dr. Raunikar does is he actually breaks down the amount of time that you can spend with this individual. So when you an acquaintance and when you are under casual friendship, you are not supposed to be spending any time alone with each other. When you are a close friendship, you can spend 10 hours with that person. And I'm thinking he's saying in a week. When you are intimate friendship, you can spend up to 20 hours with this individual alone in a week. So I thought that was pretty good. One thing to mention is until you get to that level, of intimacy, remember the time, because he wants us to limit how long we spend with this individual one-on-one, because when we're spending this time with this person one-on-one, then that's when it's more likely that we will, fall into like maybe having sex with that person, or not even so much just having sex with the person, or just doing things that's crossing the line of us, just maintaining our purity with that. So something else that Dr. Raunikar says that really puts dating into a different perspective is, he says, if you've dated very much at all, you've probably had the experience of sitting down with another person and having the talk. That's the conversation a couple has when at least one of them may say, God just wants us to be friends. Yet that person's behavior sent out an entirely different message for weeks and months prior to the talk. So I think that that's such a true statement, because we've really just devoted so much time and interest and energy into that person, only for them in the end to say, I believe that God wants us to be friends. And I know that I've done that to guys, because it's kind of like what I was doing was trying to figure out, do I like this person? And that's what Dr. Raunikar doesn't want us to do. He wants us to be in these group activities, doing ministry together, things like that. So we won't become so attached to this individual where, we haven't really got to, where we haven't been focusing on what God wants us to do in this relationship. And so with that, it's less likely for that individual to get hurt, because we're not bearing our soul with this individual, with all this alone time that we're spending with them, only to find out this is not the person that God wants you to be with. And so that's what Dr. Raunikar is trying to eliminate, that talk that you have with this individual after you spend all this time with them, after you input all this energy into them, to only say, well, God has told me that you are not the person that I'm supposed to be with. So, Dr. Raunikar also says that when one person ends a relationship, leaving the other feeling defrauded, it's not God's fault. God doesn't direct two people into an intimate friendship and then change his mind in midstream. I thought that was a really good statement. It's so good, I'm going to read it again. So it says, when one person ends a relationship, leaving the other feeling defrauded, it's not God's fault. God doesn't direct two people into an intimate friendship and then change his mind in midstream. Y'all, we don't be playing when we be putting stuff on God. We be like, oh, God said, nah. God first didn't even tell you to be doing all this stuff with this lady or man. So we really just, that's why I'm saying, like, I think that this is a good book overall, because it gives us the tools to implement a different way of getting to know somebody, to find out if this is the person that God has for us. So that's why I really do recommend you all getting this book. The link is actually in the description box, Amazon link, because I'm just hitting the surface, with this Sip and Read book club. But when you actually read the book and really just try to implement it into your life, then it's really good to be able to sit and think about some of the stuff and really just how to really just mold it for your life. Because it's hard to implement every single thing that Dr. Raunikar is trying to teach. But I think there are so many great principles that he's teaching in this book that can really just help us and eliminate all of that, hurt that we feel and that we get in situations we put ourselves in when we are dating someone. So then Dr. Raunikar starts talking about brotherly and sisterly love and what it really looks like on a daily basis. I really thought that this was a good part. Dr. Raunikar is really just saying that Paul is teaching that our friendships should model how we treat our natural born brothers and sisters. Dr. Raunikar is saying our friendships should model how we treat our own brothers and sisters, meaning our siblings. So when I read that section, I was really thinking about the unhealthy and dysfunctional relationships that people have with their brothers and sisters. And that's not what Paul is talking about, so he's not talking about that stuff. So Dr. Raunikar says on page 138, so listen to this. He says, whatever you would be willing to do with, to, or for a natural born brother or sister, you'd have to be willing to do with, to, or for another person. In a similar fashion, what you wouldn't do in the case of a sibling, you shouldn't do in the case of a friend. And he's coming from 1 Timothy chapter 5, verses 1 and 2. I thought that was really good. So he says the activities that you would do with a sibling should also be all right to do with the opposite sex, except for these cautions. So I'm going to read that again because I know I stumbled over a little something. He said the activities that you would do with a sibling should also be all right to do with the opposite sex, except for these cautions. Avoid long activities together. Avoid deep, intimate one-on-one time together, and allow a long period of time to pass before you plan another activity with the person. He also says, when you make the commitment to treat everyone like a natural born brother or sister, you'll be amazed how easily you can distinguish between biblically appropriate behavior and behavior that is inappropriate. You will know the difference between friendly, uplifting behavior and those actions that stifle and destroy friendships or stimulate wrong thoughts. With a brother or sister, you don't spend time playing romantic. I thought this is really good, y'all. He said, with a brother or sister, you don't spend time playing romantic emotional games or sending nonverbal messages through sensual looks and sexy moves. You don't have clandestine meetings or touch each other in ways that leave the other person wondering what you meant. You don't make suggestive comments with sexual overtones. I thought that was really good, and I thought that was really needed, simply because we have to, me personally, I have to have a visual. So when he says, okay, when he asks the question, would you do that with your brother? And my response would be no. Like, I wouldn't be kissing my brother like that. I wouldn't be touching up my brother, like my natural born brother like that. And so that's what he wants us to start getting into the mindset of, is this, and asking yourself this question: would you do this? Would you touch? Would you talk to your natural born brother or sister that way? And that's how he wants us to maintain our friendships with individuals of the opposite sex. So I thought that was a really good point that Dr. Raunikar is teaching in that section. So then Dr. Raunikar begins to talk about boundaries. See, this is why this had to really just be a 2-part chapter, because he just talks about a lot of good information in this chapter that I just didn't want to rush it. So make sure you tune in next week, okay? So, like I said, he talks about the boundaries, and a couple of things that he teaches about these boundaries are: boundaries will define and guard our hearts and keep us from defrauding others. That's good. Another thing is, if a friendship that has no boundaries, it is highly likely that counterfeit oneness will occur. The more time you spend with someone, even in a group, the more likely that friendship will kick up a level or two to that of a close friend or an intimate friendship. Now, that's the first time that I've heard him throw caution, even in these group activities. So he says, if you don't set boundaries, then you tread on dangerous ground. When you allow a male/female friendship to develop into an intimate friendship that doesn't have accountability or commitment, failing to put limits on your relationship, limited time, limited communication, limited intimacy will make you vulnerable to counterfeit oneness. So that's really something that we should just really be mindful. Dr. Raunikar is really trying to train us so that we will begin to guard our heart, so that we won't fall into these situations that we regret. So another thing he says is about boundaries are that they should be set before the situation occurred. That is good, because when you're in the heat of the moment, you cannot set no boundary. It's so hard. So again, I'll say that again. He says another thing about boundaries are they should be set before a situation occurs, not after. Now, this is something that I threw in, but it's never too late to set a boundary. If you've already done the do, it's okay to set a boundary now for you and that other person. Another thing about boundaries is boundaries should be clear and firm, because if they're not, we are tempted to let down our guard. Yeah, so with these boundaries, I've always found it kind of difficult of having that conversation. Let me see. It's not hard for me to have the conversation, but like really breaking down the boundary. So yes, I can say, okay, no sex before marriage in this relate. Let's say I'm in a relationship. So I can say no sex before marriage in this relationship. But how specific do you get? Do you get so specific that you say, okay, we won't turn the lights off when we watching a movie. We won't sit next to each other when we watching a movie. We won't massage each other. I feel that we as a society, we don't want to get that specific when we know this is something that needs to be done. And I don't know why we don't get that specific. I don't know if we think we're going to hurt the other person's feelings or what. But I feel like it's so important to have those talks. You have to have those talks in the beginning, especially so that other person will know what type of individual they're getting. But see, I feel like that's a conversation for couples that are dating. This is not a conversation for possibly somebody that's courting, because remember, Dr. Raunikar is already saying we should be limiting our one-on-one time. But that's something that Dr. Raunikar has not done with the boundaries, gotten real specific on things that we should and should not do. Like, I know there were times when, you know, in college, like, I would just lay in a bed with a guy. I don't need to be doing that. What? That is definitely a boundary. So it's like you have to get really specific with these things. And I just feel that if you're with somebody that really wants to be with you and really wants to honor God in the relationship, then they will be all right. Because it's going to seem extreme, especially if neither individuals has practiced these boundaries before. But I just feel that God is, I'm not going to say I feel, the Bible teaches that when we honor God in our relationships, he will bless us and he will bless our relationships. You know, so don't be discouraged. Don't be hesitant to set boundaries, because in the end, it's all about honoring God in these relationships. So here are some of the reasons that Dr. Raunikar actually mentions that we drop our boundaries. So one of the things he says is we drop our boundaries for a payoff. Many times that payoff is nothing more than the fulfilling of a deep need to have someone to be our friend and like us in order to avoid loneliness. The second reason why we drop our boundaries is some people are victims of physical, sexual, and emotional abuse that has left them with a poor sense of boundaries. Their experiences have taught them that their property can be invaded by others, even if they say no. And I think that that's good to mention. Let's say that you're somebody that invades somebody's boundaries. I think so many times we read this on the other side of it happening to us. But what if you are the person that does it to other individuals? I think we have to really look at who we are, look at our integrity, as well as look at our relationship with God, and what message are we putting out to people. Because if you're that person that invades somebody's boundaries, you have to really just take a honest look about yourself and know that that is not Christ-like, you know, because we're supposed to be holy and righteous in our relationships. And so with that, if you are the individual that, you know, Dr. Raunikar is warning us about, you know, I ask that you change your ways, you know. So some more things about boundaries is individuals with mature boundaries are the least angry. And I thought these were a couple of good things that Dr. Raunikar put in there. I know me personally, sometimes I have a tendency to allow people to say things to me that's disrespectful and not say anything to them, not saying like going off on them, but just speaking up for myself. And I have found that there are times where I'm beating myself up because I'm like, Martinique, now you know you should have said something, you know? And so I agree with that statement. Individuals with mature boundaries are the least angry, you know, because you do question, like, well, why you didn't say something to that person? You know, why did you let that person do that to you? And with that, if you don't stand up for yourself, nobody else is going to stand up for you. You know, it's nobody else's responsibility to speak up when you feel like somebody has crossed the line with you or have crossed your boundary. You have to tell them. So the second thing is boundaries are what keep us from feeling violated and victimized. So that was pretty good. So Dr. Raunikar writes a section about the myth of Christian dating. He opens with a couple of examples of dating type relationships that went wrong in the Bible. So he is actually coming from page 143. So these are examples of dating relationships that went wrong from the individuals in the Bible. So he talks about King David developed an interest in a woman based on physical beauty. And that's coming from 2 Samuel 11, verses 2 through 4. He watched her from a rooftop, and then he actually watched her bathing from the rooftop, and then sent his messengers to bring her to him. In essence, he had a one-night stand. The resulting guilt brought David to his knees before God, but the lies and the tragic consequences, those tragic consequences that Dr. Raunikar is talking about, King David had this woman's husband killed on the battlefield for my Lord, if y'all know that song. Tragic consequences that could not be reversed. So the second person he talks about is Solomon. He said Solomon was the wisest man who ever lived, but because he selected wives based on his own ideas, his heart was gradually drawn away from the Lord. And he's coming from 1 Kings chapter 11, verse 4. Ultimately, he found that relationships don't create happiness. Only joy from the Lord produces contentment. And the last person he talks about is Samson. He says Samson was the strongest man on earth, but his low standards and refusal to listen to his parents' counsel led him to a woman who captured his interests, clouded his judgment, and put him in bondage. And that's coming from Judges chapter 16. I'm telling you, Samson, man, that boy right there, he fell hard. I think it was Delilah. I think that's who it was. But he fell hard for this girl. So that's just the power that women and men, that effect that people have on people. So Dr. Raunikar says that the major problem with casual recreational dating is that it encourages a one-on-one relationship outside of marriage and without commitment. So then Dr. Raunikar actually starts talking about 13 different categories that most Christians experiences when dating. So that's what I'm going to end with. I'm going to talk about these categories next week. So that's why you have to tune in next week here on Facebook at 7 p.m. Eastern on my Facebook page, Martinique Y. Brown. Because it's getting good, y'all. And so this is now when we can start implementing these things into our daily lives. And if you've enjoyed this show, please subscribe to my YouTube channel, which is Martinique the Storyteller. The link is in the description box. Also, if we're not friends on Facebook, what are you waiting for? Make sure you send me a friend request. Make sure you also just get your book. Get you a book. I know we are in the second part of chapter 7, but that's okay. Like I said, I'm just hitting the surface. I'm just giving you the summary of these chapters, but it's so good to dig in deeper with what Dr. Raunikar is teaching in the book. The link is in the description box. Also, just to catch up on your episode, make sure you visit my YouTube channel and you can catch up on all of our previous episodes, chapters 1 through 6. Girl boss, y'all. So this is more so a business book, but if you a guy, don't be discouraged because it says girl boss. She really has some good principles that you can begin to implement, especially if you're an entrepreneur or a business owner yourself. So the link is in the description box. And the reason why I'm doing this so early is so you can go ahead and order your book so that you can start reading and you can just follow along with me. If you truly enjoy these shows that I produce, make sure you go to my GoFundMe link that's in the description box. Any amount is good. It's helpful because this is a financial gift so I can continue to produce shows that you enjoy and that I truly enjoy producing as well. I hope you all have a great night and be blessed. Bye bye.